Hello, my name is Chloe Bruce. I'm a former journalist specialising in the Russian energy economy from a political perspective. Today I want to talk about, I've been talking on this channel, of course, as those who have watched other videos by now, about my diagnosis of schizophrenia in my late 20s and then later in my early 30s of epilepsy. And this was in the early new millennium. And I've been talking about this and the stigma in the United Kingdom, and my channel has centred a lot about why mental health is stigmatised in context of the UK socio-economic problems and fascist behaviour. And this has been the theme running throughout all my videos, although I have discussed also the current war in Ukraine and Russia. And today I want to discuss, I think it was yesterday, but certainly in the last few days, the Mi5 chief gave a speech about terrorism and the terror threat in Britain. And as far as I can tell, you can call me paranoid schizophrenia, as I'm sure he will want to. I think he called me a terrorist, and you can see this when I read these notes. I think at best he was ill-informed and insensitive. If you want to see the background to this, please see the video I refer to, or there are a couple of videos I refer to in this discussion. A few days ago I talked of libelous medical notes and local government notes that I've received recently. I ordered some of my data, only some of it's come, but drawing themselves, these individuals, which range from social services to nurses and doctors, into a sick fantasy that I was having my bills paid for by Russian financiers. A literally preposterous idea, and as insane as it can get. And I said in my, and I've said in my previous videos about this fantasy about Russian financiers. And I've got some notes here that I'll show you later, the data, parts of the data. I've had to keep it as short as possible. There are many points I could show you, but I'll try and show the offending pages, at least some of them. This is because, you'll see, this fantasy was in my data, and it's about as preposterous as humanly possible. And I've already said how they were racist against me just because I speak the Russian language, and their bias shone through in this fantastical idea, and his also, as he mentioned, Russian financiers himself. As such, when in similar, so to refer to his speech, part of his speech at least, as such, when in similar wording to my own about the Russian financier libel in my notes, using very similar wording to me, the Mi5 chief, a bit after I'd issued my video saying how appalled I was about this libel, and sort of joined in, he also talked of Russian financiers and how Mi5 would personally punish them, and punish them getting money from Russia, anyone getting money from Russian financiers. And he appeared at this point to have joined in not just a Munchausen fantasy, but that may have actually contributed to the current war in Ukraine and Russia, but also a kind of white spite that I wrote to Rishi Sunak about when he was Prime Minister, saying that the UK had the appearance of kind of whiteocracy. And at this time, misogyny was being discussed about misogynistic habits in the United Kingdom quite a lot in the media. And there are many aspects to this white spite and whiteocracy, as in a white democracy. But part of this is a type of, I've discussed these sort of in-men of Whitehall who always sort of make out they're terribly sort of linked, connected to the secret services, terribly senior, terribly important, sidling up to you for doing the information you've hardly worked for, all your life even. And so I've discussed this in previous videos. And it's a type of older man of white appearance. I don't want to make too many assumptions, but to all intents and purposes I can say they're of a strong white appearance, who makes out their sort of secret intelligence are always sort of in senior positions to you and unleash their ghastly wives, some of them at least, they unleash their ghastly wives on you and interrupt you when you're trying to work and then blame you for not getting the job done. This Mi5 chief is tactless and insensitive at the very least in the way I recognise in these men, especially when he says that those financed by Russian financier are a terrorist who might be mentally ill. I feel this is ill-informed, as I've already told Mi5 before he made this speech, that in my case these financiers were non-existent, and I was talking about a trend in the United Kingdom in local government bodies and the National Health Service so dangerous they're actually inventing an enemy in a Russian financier. No, he's joining in, even though I told him these are non-existent. Put me in a court. Put him in a court or something. Can't he take me to court? Can't he take these people to court? He said that MI5 was going to, that they would, anyone taking running money from Russian financier would feel the full weight of MI5. But what about the courts? I've already said in earlier videos, you put me in a kangaroo court called Wake Up. And I've already said to them, I wrote on online contact form, nothing remarkable in terms of contacts, a boring old contact form that I've never really trusted, but I said it anyway. I said, in my case, I don't know of anyone else I've heard of being told they have Russian finances, but anyway, non-existence, and I'm now wondering about whether it was MI6. I've got this, hold on, let me just have a look for it. I popped it down somewhere. I've showed it in other videos anyway. It's a business card that I was given by MI6 when I popped in, but you'll see it in earlier videos. I hold it up. I was already told, now I'm wondering if MI6 put me in hospital in case I proved them wrong about this in some fashion. And I have this business card, I've shown you, you'll see it, the headline's got MI6 put me in hospital, something to that effect, and I showed this business card, but I seem to have just mislaid it. I put it down, this is it, no, oh well, never mind, I won't fuss around with that, but I've got some other things to show you. When I visited their HQ to discuss something in a state of distress, and they put me in hospital and refused to let me make a phone call to someone to say I'd be late home. And they sectioned me in St Thomas's. They said, no, you can't make the call, you can't make the call. It was just to say I'd be late home while I discussed things with them. And they put me in St Thomas's, sort of Boney M. Knott, a sort of stodgy-faced, immature cow, actually, with a sort of stodgy face. I don't want to go too much into the description of her appearance because I might get it wrong. But anyway, she was hardly Boney M. And I have since been psychiatrically tortured and threatened with medical contraindications that harm not only an unborn child, which means I'm abstaining anyway, but I wouldn't be able to have a child with all this going on, with these contraindications, and which also could cause brain damage and death of the mother in childbirth. Even if the baby were okay, the mother is very likely to die in childbirth with these medications. Anyway. And today, I'll just for the record show you some of these offending notes in my local authority notes, which are so many lies I don't know what to tell you about, but indicate both. But what I will tell you about will indicate both housing and social care fraud that I've discussed in some of my earlier podcasts, if that's what they're called, video podcasts, on my channel here on YouTube. So I've got them to my left. So first, there was discussion about how there was a discussion about these financiers that never happened when I was under section unable to leave hospital, as I was supposed to be dirty and bad with money. That's the reasons they said I couldn't leave hospital. I do not recognise this fantastical discussion that I'll show you. That includes spying on my journalistic work, with attempts to obtain leisure on me from a family where they talk about my shady oil and gas acquaintances, and I have to make one thing clear, none of my oil and gas acquaintances are shady. I don't want to go into the details, but it's obvious all journalists have to have business contacts. I happen to be in energy, so my contacts within oil and gas, and I'm a Russian speaker, Russian specialist, so I happen to be Russian. I'll show you, I've just marked these. So I'll show you this attempt. There are other mentions of these Russian financiers and speculation they're paying my bills. This is simply fiction. So I'll hold it up, and I've already said they're spying on my shopping. She shops at Sainsbury's, Wilko's, Primark. It's this all during the COVID pandemic. Bear in mind this hospitalisation and all this fandango is in the build up to my hospitalisation in summer 2020. I'll show you this to you. I'll read it to you first. She is very guarded about her financial situation. She says she's in receipt of ESA, which I am, important employment now, which is enough to live on. They didn't just accept that. She stated, I remember I've told you already, she had so little money. She stated that her rent is paid via her NI contributions, not housing benefit. This is untrue. I couldn't possibly have said this. No, I couldn't possibly have said it wasn't paid by housing benefit. She denies having rent arrears. I do not have rent arrears. I did not have rent arrears. I had water rates from Thames Water that were taken over by the council. I had no idea what they were going on about when they asked me to pay for water. I had to see them in court. Instead, they put me in hospital. She said she was able to pay her electricity and water bills, but refused to say how. Why would I not be able to pay my electricity and gas bills just because this absurd person from overseas comes and spies on our British benefits? She thinks that it's never going to be enough to pay water and gas bills because she's in the communist era or something. She added that she works with Russian financiers to manage these. This is such a flight of ideas on her part. I don't know why she keeps repeating she's having flights of ideas. She is quite preposterously, or whoever is supporting this, which is the whole department and the whole local authority. I have never known such insanity. You never said a dictator wasn't insane. Yes, and then she says, do you have a freedom pass? Can I bear in mind, these freedom passes for the extremely immobile and the elderly? One should not abuse the system. I was trying to put her off getting a freedom pass for me, dropping the... I was just trying to say politely as possible, can you drop the subject of freedom pass? I didn't want to be drawn into a benefit that I didn't have to repay because it's the wrong benefit. Anyway, and then you've got at the bottom here, you can see right at the bottom, according to Chloe's mother notes that on 19th of May 2020, which was before I was hospitalised, so having all these discussions with my mother, which I'll come to, Rosamund Nouvelle is her name. She used to be Bruce, my surname. She used to work in Russia and mixed with a number of shady figures in Russia's oil and gas and oil business in past, and her belief, therefore, that her phone was hacked may have somehow had truth in it. I haven't said my phone was hacked. I have never said my phone was hacked. I may have called to the possibility that there might have been a bug or a hack in my phone. I have literally never really considered this as anything but a bizarre thing drawn back from decades ago of discussion. And all these are tiny, mixed up in one present tense, when in fact they're tiny little things that have gone on over decades. I'll show the page now. 1 second. I have to move forward a bit. I'm lifting it up so you can go down. And I'm not sure how, when it's paused, you can't see it that well, but I'll give you time as much as I can. I was wondering how people actually see that quickly enough. I thought that some people might photograph screens and things like that to have it sustained. Anyway, onwards and upwards. And this bickering about something that's completely untrue anyway. Every single thing's a lie. This is what I mean by the utter ignorance and insufficient knowledge of the Mi5 chief in his discussion about Russian financiers. Anyone taking money be punished. He means me, based on a rumour. Can you please put me in a court and I'll see you there? You think I'm frightened of you? Weirdo. Anyway, so that's the first thing. Yeah, I don't know why he thinks I have to be frightened of him. I've already been through the worst because of these Russian financiers, in case he hasn't noticed his own intelligence. Anyway, yeah, so other little sort of details. The whole thing is, well, much of the bulk is unfilled in forms. And this sort of data on bizarre policies that they have, sort of waste of time, like a bizarre, sinister thing saying, saying I should be locked up, I was questioning, saying lock up for several months without a courtroom. I'll show you that. This is just one of tiny details. There's not one same thing in it, and they're calling me paranoid schizophrenic when they're sort of building up a whole policy based on Russian financiers that don't exist, at least in my case. The problem with this is, if you're given one detail, one example of these Russian financiers, who are they? What about a student who's financed by Russian scholarship? I might one day want to apply for Russian scholarship. I'm going to get the full force of Mi5, am I, without a court? Or a business that has a Russian share in it, or something like that. What does he mean? And why don't you give a detail? I think you're talking about me as a terrorist. There might be an unusual look to a terrorist or something, me or something. What a weirdo. He didn't come across as well at all. Anyway, so this is the several months at the top here. That's right. They always miss the point, these white men, and I think he's of white origin, his appearance. And I'll read it just in case. Chloe is to be placed in an inpatient rehabilitation unit for a period of several months, with a question mark. And in every single instance, they bypass my GP and a mention of my GP. Yes, and about the sick part of this lies. There was a fantasy to describe me in leg restraints that never even happened, and would be fatal to someone like me who is seizure prone. This is sick imaginings, and I'll show you that now, the leg restraint part. So it says feces in the sink and rotten food. They've lied and said I have feces in the sink. And let me see the leg restraints. I don't know if yeah, handcuffed. She says had to be handcuffed and put in leg restraints on admission. I'm 5'2.5", or just under 5'3". There were 7 of them. I had to be in leg restraints. I think I actually restrained my own legs. I was in handcuffs, but not in the ambulance. They took them off in the ambulance. They didn't put me in leg restraints. You're in the US, dear. In death row or something. Leg restraints, I think, used on death row. You're the most insane bunch of criminals I've ever known. And I'm not saying my family aren't. I don't say they're my family. They keep going, she's not my mother. I can tell you something. This woman is not my mother. I have a different mother. She may have brought me up in some form, but she is not my mother. And this is not my family. I don't bear any resemblance to these criminals or these creeps, whatever what you want to call them at all. And I'm saying that for the record. You want to put me in hospital saying that? Go see your own mother. Deal with your own mother in future. That's exactly what I said to this Dr. Hughes. He said to me in this session, he says, I'm saying she's not my mother. What actually happened was he said, can I call you mother? I said, no. I said repeatedly, no, you cannot call my mother. I don't want her to know anything about me. And then he said, no, I've got to call you mother. He started yelling at me. I said to him, I think you're talking about your own mother. And that turns into me not knowing my mother. I think he's projecting he doesn't know his own mum. Get a life. All this during COVID. He's got to call my mum. He's the one, I think he must be called Dr. Peter Hughes. He went by that name at parts at least. And he's the one that appears to all the appearances in the Stacey Dooley BBC documentary that filmed me, presumably for the Russian financiers too, against my will in hospital while I was there during COVID. And I still haven't got any kind of progress on the complaint I made to the BBC about it. If you want to see about this, see my first video and a few after that. It crops up in them all really. So, yes, and there's a reference in one bit of the notes to a Bruce Baden. Baden, I know some German, I checked this just to recap. It's a word for baths. There's a German called Baden, baths, with Bruce. My surname is Bruce. And I've talked about these Holocaust revivals with descriptions of me eating my own excrement in the context of Russophobia and anti-Semitism. I've talked about how I'm a Christian, a British Christian, but I've got Slavic Jewish from my mother line. And I eat my own excrement in front of plumbers and things like that. I want this court. If you want a court, you can have a court. But you don't want one because you know that I will completely and utterly shatter your little illusion about a Slavic woman in Britain. And I'm not Slavic. I have no idea what to say except your assumption and a half about British women. Yes, and then on another bit, I'm just cherry picking really. You can have your pick of pages. Not only does it describe my mother going through, I've talked about how I was thieved from while I was under section hospital, and one of the things they took, just bizarre choice of objects to take, not just my PhD thesis on Russian gas politics, but hard copies of my novel, presumably searching for these shady oil and gas contacts, sort of going through everything. And they took a childhood gift a Russian girl gave to me, and sort of Russian spoons and things like that later, or little Russian objects. And some kind of Freudian slip. It was a little plate, it may have been silver, I suppose, a little Russian tray. My dear friend Olga from Russia, my exchange when I was 14, learning Russian at GCSE level. I've said how they've assumed in the notes I've got native Russian because I'm sort of Slavic Jewish. In fact, I learned it the hard way from the age of 14. I learned Russian at school and I got an A at GCSE, and because I'd done well I decided to continue and did my first degree in Russian studies, which included political science combined with language and literature of Russia, and then I got a scholarship to do something a bit more scientific and theoretical at the MSc, which is the political science of the Russian Federation, and later I won a scholarship. After working as a journalist for a while, I won a scholarship to the Austrian Academy of Sciences, a full scholarship where I did my doctorate. So I know that the council gave people keys, and whether it was my mother or not, but there's a description of her going through my finances and discussion of my finances, which I'll show you now. I lost my place. Yes, it says, I'll show the page. Ms. Lavelle, her name's Rosamond Lavelle, she changed it to Lavelle after divorcing, she was Bruce, claimed that she came across a couple of letters which demanding payments. Ms. Lavelle paid off her rent arrear. She paid my rent. I'm in a council flat, the government pays my rent. Though she is unsure whether a letter requesting money back due to overpayments was sent back. I have no idea what they mean. Chloe, however, felt she did not need assistance with correspondences. I've already said how my mother was a social worker working in Camden Social Services and Bulstrode Place Westminster Social Services. She's saying she's paying for me. It's gone throughout how she's supporting Chloe with money, and yet I'm meant to be getting money from Russian financiers. Is that my mum, my Slavic mum or something? Or who started this rumour that I have Russian financiers? She paid off my rent and trying to get the money back or something for having paid. When I got out of hospital, I paid my water rates, not my rent. This is what you would pay to Thames Water. I didn't know that they had handed the private water companies into the hand of the councils. I paid my water rates and with my own money. I'll show you this. It is literally one laugh. What gets me is rummaging through my correspondence and my letters while I'm in hospital sick without my permission, with me never giving her the keys. We'll continue. Not long to go. So, and most of these notes are speculation about my money. And my mother's saying, oh, I saw a minor, so I think she's got £6,500 in debt. This is not true, that I'm actually someone who hasn't particularly, I've always got plus, and not much money, no, but I have good financial controls, and I'm always plus. I'm not minus. And this is why I'm kept in hospital, because I'm bad with money based on this mother that I've discussed in previous videos, and her sexual fantasy that disabled people have to be masturbated when they're children because they don't know how to. And most of these discussions, speculation about money. Apparently I have pathology, there's a note here, describing this 2020 note to whilst in a hospital, as a gas attack imminent. There's going to be a gas attack. And this is a symptom of my paranoid schizophrenia. I will leave you to judge for yourselves and note my thesis in Vienna was on just that, a way that natural gas can be used as political bargaining tool. And now they're moaning about the natural gas. They didn't have to employ a woman, but they actually didn't have to say her ideas are mad while nicking them for themselves. I will stop here and return to other parts of the data in a later video. But I suggest this supposed MI5 chief says why these allegations I suggest that the supposed MI5 chief says why these allegations have led to psychiatric torture, at least to me. He didn't mention how these allegations had led to psychiatric torture. It's someone else's fault, is it? That this is happening in British hospitals. And no excuses, because I wrote to them about these hospital terrorists months ago. I'm the terrorist because I somehow got Russian language, and that's meant to be an adept way of looking at the current crisis in the world, and that's going to help, is it? Without these details, you could say, I can clear Chloe Bruce at least these Russian finances, nevertheless the problem persists. But he didn't, did he? Anyway, I'll leave it at that, and I will show you other parts of these notes. I'm waiting for more data to come. They've only given me a tiny bit. They've just given me the medical part there, but I assume it's all medical in some bizarre fashion. I just want to reiterate, I need a court. I need a court. And could you please, Mr. Chief of the MI5, give me the court and say, one or the other, she's not with Russian financiers, or does your intelligence always have to come from me in some bizarre fashion? And what I don't like is, because I said it earlier, about these Russian financiers in relation to my notes, it makes it sound like I'm some kind of spy, sort of giving information to MI5. It was my own doctorate, it was my own work. This is my own research, it's my own ability to read through notes. And the wording was extremely similar to me, making it look like I'm briefing you. And one of these arguments I had with these white-in men, but they always make out they own you. Oh, she's mine. She's mine. Oh, she works for so-and-so. And when you say, no, I don't, you work for so-and-so. And they're just, she works for me, she works for me. One day they'll get a job. Thank you for listening.